Did she do this on purpose? Whenever I ask myself if she did anything on purpose, the answer is always going to be yes, right? Hello everyone, greetings. Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to this video. If you're new to my channel, hi, welcome. Make sure to subscribe if you're new and hit the like button if you end up enjoying this video. On my channel, I analyze things in depth. Right now, I'm going through all of the songs on Taylor Swift's newest album called Folklore. So make sure to subscribe if you're interested in more folklore content. Today I'm going to be doing the song Invisible String. I've been trying to make an effort to look at each song as a standalone song, not in reference to any theories. I was doing really good at that until I analyzed the songs Cardigan and Hoax, because those two just tie in a lot of things together. So I kind of went in on the theories a little bit in those videos. I'll go ahead and link that for you guys. In this video in particular, I think I will be able to view it as more of a standalone song. After I go through all of the songs on this album, I'll be doing at the very least 2 separate videos summarizing everything. One about the love triangle theory, which is just a lot. We're just gonna let it sit here for now because I'm still trying to figure it out, and then I'll be doing another video just on how the album exists as a cohesive entity. I tend to concentrate on diction, which is word choice, and connotation, which can be thought of as like the vibes or the emotions that the words elicit. As a quick disclaimer, music is very subjective, so everything presented in this video is my own personal opinion. I always encourage you guys to comment down below what your thoughts are. Let's go and get started. I firmly believe this is a direct reference to the String of Fate. Let's consult Wikipedia for more specific information. Also, this is just my iPad. I have lyrics and notes on here, so yeah. So according to Wikipedia, there is something called the red thread of fate. In Taylor's interpretation of this concept, she is using the word invisible, which I'll discuss in a second. Originally, this is thought of as a red thread. So according to Wikipedia, the red thread of fate is an East Asian belief originating from Chinese mythology. It's commonly thought of as an invisible red cord around the finger of those who are destined to meet one another in a certain situation as they are their true love. It's just kind of like the concept of fate. Here it's thought that soulmates or the one, Taylor has a song called The One on this album, that they are tied together. You can infer from that there is always a link between them and that they will find a way to one another because there's a bond between them. I definitely think this is the same belief system that Taylor is referencing here in her song title. However, instead of a red thread, she uses the word invisible. String is something tangible. Tangible means something that you can touch, but something invisible, you cannot grasp it. You can't see it and you can't touch it. You kind of wonder if it actually exists, you know? The 2 word invisible and string to me are opposing. That's a very interesting juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is when things are set side by side for the purpose of comparison. And in my personal opinion, these 2 words are opposing to one another because something invisible cannot be sensed in any way. You just kind of have to choose to believe that it's there. But a string is something that you can see, you can touch. The fact that those 2 words are the title of the song is very interesting. Definitely gives me kind of a mystical vibe. It's believing something exists without having hard evidence because it's invisible. I just think it's really cute too because, as we'll get into it, I think this song is more autobiographical. Taylor did mention that for this album in particular, it's not as autobiographical as her previous work, but for this song in particular, I would argue that it is autobiographical. The title of the song gives me a lot of cute, cozy, romantic vibes. It's adorable, but there's also a lot of substance and value. Let's just go ahead and get into it, you guys. This is a very feel-good, cute song. So let's get started. Also, I am aware the sun is just like very present, so we're gonna fix that in a second, but I think this is the universe helping me out and being like, hey, everyone, I analyzed the song Daylight by Taylor Swift. I will link it for you below and above. Thanks, universe. Also, can I just say something really quick before I switch? I don't know how Taylor does this, but one of my previous videos, it was a video for illicit affairs. One of the definitions of the words she uses, the word clandestine, the definition included the word illicit. So the definition of one of the words in her song had this song title. On the Wikipedia page for the red string of fate, there is a literal section just called folklore. How does this happen? I literally don't understand. I'm also just very impressed and kind of scared, but scared out of respect. Hi everyone, we're just gonna be like off balance for a bit, and we can interpret the light here as like a metaphor about how pure the love between Joe and Taylor is, because I think they were connected by an invisible string, and this is the love that they had. It's so pure and it's palpable and it's manifesting as like light behind me. I hope it doesn't bother you, and I hope that you choose to interpret this metaphorically as a physical representation of the love between Joe and Taylor. I ship it. I should have just filmed at night. That's what I'm gathering from this. First one. Green was the color of the grass where I used to read at Centennial Park. I used to think I would meet somebody there. Teal was the color of your shirt when you were 16 at the yogurt shop you used to work at to make a little money. This is so hard to read without like the rhythm in which she sings it. In this song, the sentence structure is unique. We'll see it more as we go through the song. I specifically love the way she references bad blood. Just the way she says it is really interesting to me. That's a few verses down. She starts it off with a color. Green was the color of the grass. I love interesting sentence structure, and for me this is very interesting. She is saying the color green first, that's making us see the color, and then she is assigning an object to it afterwards. She is creating space between the adjective, green, and the subject, the grass. The way she's creating space between it just kind of gives me a vibe that time is very slowed down and everything's very intentional. That's how I personally feel, because when I hear the word green, I'm subconsciously waiting to see what was green, and she's making us wait for it. I hope this makes sense, but it just gives me kind of a more mindful, slowed down vibe the second that I get into this song. I already can tell as a listener or as a reader that this song is special, it's unique, and it's kind of existing within its own time and space. If you are interested in concepts like this, I would recommend you check out my lyric analysis of the song Slow Burn by Casey Musgraves. I talk a lot about time and nature and how it's important to take your time, you know, like a slow burn. And that video is just very like existential and like it's very meta. So if you like kind of intangible, ambiguous topics like this, I would suggest you check that out if you're interested. So green was the color of the grass where I used to read at Centennial Park. The pronoun I is used, right? This is further confirming for me that this song is autobiographical. This is giving us context clues, providing setting. So when she used to read at this park called Centennial Park, the grass was green, and while she was there, she used to think she would meet someone. This is just very relatable and it's very cute. It's just a very like intimate thought that we have sometimes. Like sometimes when you go to a coffee shop and you sit down, you're like, oh my God, am I gonna meet my soulmate here? Or sometimes when you're like at the grocery store, like buying bread, you're like, oh my God, is my like future partner gonna be here? This is a similar thing. I think that a park while you're reading is a very good meet cute. Where did she meet Joe Alwyn? Teal was the color of your shirt when you were 16 at the yogurt shop. It's interesting to me that the next color is teal. I kind of view teal and green as being similar. Teal has more of like a blue undertone, I guess. I'm not like an art person, so if I'm wrong, let me know below, but I think they're kind of similar. Like teal is kind of green bluish in my opinion, and green is like green. So that's an interesting juxtaposition. We went from green and then we're going to teal. The green is about Taylor and the teal is about her lover, which is Joe Alwyn. That's who I think the song is about. I think this is a reflection of her current relationship status, so I think this is about them. For me, it's interesting that her color is green right now and his color is teal. They're similar but different enough. This is just sharing a very personal detail about her lover, the color of his shirt. That's a very specific thing to state about someone, and specificity goes hand in hand with intimacy. So this shows me that she knows her lover very well. She knows him so well that she knows the exact color of his shirt when he used to work at an ice cream shop when he was 16. I think that's really, really interesting. I also really like that last line because it's just another specific detail, and it just shows the depth to which Taylor knows her lover. It just gives me a feeling that there's a very strong bond between them. So the fact that the colors are, in my opinion, kind of similar, and the fact that she is talking about her lover in such specificity makes me feel like she and her lover have a very deep and intimate bond with one another. Verse 2. Time, curious time. Gave me no compasses, gave me no signs. Were there clues I didn't see? And isn't it just so pretty to think? All along, there was some invisible string tying you to me. This song is so meta, I love it. I love meta existential things. It's like totally my vibe. Time, curious time. In all of my lyric analysis videos, I state that repetition signifies significance. When things are repeated in a song, I view that as a songwriter giving us a message about what's important and what we should focus on. The concept of time here is very important. The word curious is also very significant here. The word curious here just means something that's strange and unusual and unique. It's something that makes you think. When time is stated the first time, it's just like the concept of time. But the word time, when it's repeated, is a little bit different in my opinion. The connotation is different because it's preceded by the word curious. So time, curious time, right? This is the lyric. This is just the regular concept of time that we all are familiar with. But here, there's a qualifier in front of the word time, curious. So she's kind of pondering to herself. She's just sitting and being very like existential, which I'm sure she does a lot because there's always so much depth in her work. And she's like, time, curious time. She is acknowledging that time can be very unusual and, you know, the world works in mysterious ways. This whole song is about fate. You are destined for certain things, and just because you don't understand where you're at right now, like hindsight is 20/20 and things may make sense later on. If you believe in fate, you are going to connect with this lyric. For me, this is just referring to the fact that you never really know what's gonna happen. It's curious. So I actually looked up the word curious. I wanted to know how many different definitions there are. I'm gonna consult my trusty internet source here, and we're gonna discuss the word curious. So when someone is curious, it means that they're eager to know something or learn something. I think that's the definition that most of us are familiar with. But another definition of the word curious is something strange or unusual. She's realizing how weird the world can be sometimes. You know what I mean? This song really deals with fate. You can either believe in fate or not, but there is something to be said about how some things just work out sometimes and how time is pretty strange. It's very interesting to think about just conceptually and just within the context of anyone's life. A lot can happen. If you view time as an indicator of change, that's really interesting as well. I'm not gonna like let myself talk about this too much because I'll get very existential and very meta, and I don't know if that's anyone's cup of tea. If it is, let me know in the comments below, but I just think this is really interesting because so much can happen, right? When you view time as like parallel to change, I think it's really interesting. And as we go through this song, that's kind of what she's doing because so much has changed for her in her love life that we know of, and people grow. And also the concept of timing of certain things having to happen at a certain time, I think that's another layer here as well. I'm gonna stop talking about time so I don't have an existential crisis, so let's just move on. Gave me no compasses, gave me no signs. This is indicating that she felt lost. Sometimes you just have to go forward believing that things are gonna work out without any tangible evidence that they are. She had no compasses. She didn't know which way north was. She didn't know which way she was going, but there were perhaps no like metaphorical signs. You know, sometimes you're like looking for a sign to make a certain decision. Were there clues that I didn't see? This again is showing how introspective of a song this is. She's just wondering to herself, wow, like did I miss something here? She's just reflecting. Hindsight is 20/20. I think that sometimes too in life, you're just going on a path and you think you know where you're going, but all of a sudden something great can just come out of nowhere and you're like, literally, where did you come from? Like what happened? And you're just kind of blindsided by it in a good way. And I think that's what happened here with Taylor. Especially if we look at the song Delicate and a lot of songs on the Reputation album. Her current lover just kind of came out of nowhere and she was very shook because he loved her when the rest of the world didn't. I think if you know a little bit about Taylor's background and just like the timeline of her relationship with Joe in relation to the Reputation album and everything, I think it's really interesting because I don't think she would have ever expected to find like her lover and the love of her life when the rest of the world did not love her. I think this is her just thinking about how she never expected to find her true love in the context of just such darkness from the public. She found her lover, but you never know how it's gonna happen. And isn't it just so pretty to think? The phrase "just so pretty" just makes us feel very whimsical and light and airy. I kind of feel like I'm in a fairy tale, like skipping along a path, and there's like cottagecore vibes everywhere. I stan. This is a very feel-good song. All along there was some invisible string tying you to me. Again, she's just kind of thinking to herself, like, isn't it just a very nice and pleasant thing to just think that all along this was the plan? There's comfort in certainty, right? She's presenting the idea that this was gonna happen all along. It's just a feeling of safety. It's the feeling of standing on a foundation. It's the feeling of having signs telling you which way to go on a path. That's the belief system that she's alluding to here, in my opinion. Let me know if you agree or not in the comments below. Invisible string tying you to me. Again, the fact that they're tied together means that they will find their way to one another eventually, and that there's always a bond between them. There always was a bond, there is a bond now, and there always will be a bond as well. So this is just a concept of fate, that things are predestined in a way, and you know, you have people that you are meant to meet because there is something very significant and pure about that bond. I love the first line of this verse so much. Okay. Bad was the blood of the song in the cab on your first trip to LA. You ate at my favorite spot for dinner. Bold was the waitress on our 3-year trip, getting lunch down by the lakes. She said I looked like an American singer. I love this verse so much. I think this whole verse is my favorite. There's like cuteness here, and there's also sass here, and I love sassy Taylor Swift lyrics. Bless. So the first line here is a literary allusion to her own work. Taylor has literally done this so many times. She has like used the literary device of an allusion to allude to her own work, and that's such a power move in my opinion. She did this in the song Cornelia Street, where she borrowed the melody of a song from her very first album, the song Invisible, and she put that melody over a specific verse, and I talk about what that means in that video. I'll go ahead and link it for you guys. But she's doing it here again. She's referring to the song Bad Blood. I love the way that she told us that was the song. Bad was the blood of the song. She is just creating space between the words, and it just makes it more interesting, and it draws you in as a listener. It makes you want to get in a little bit closer to your headphones and be like, girl, what is she saying? It's just really great. It's a very eloquent and witty way to state these things. It kind of, like I said, makes it feel more mystical and magical. It's kind of just like a riddle that you have to solve. It just goes with the whole idea of fate and like destined lovers, in my opinion. I love how she incorporates so many things to create a vibe. It takes a lot of thought to do things like this. Girl, I see you and I respect it. On a more literal sense, the first time he visited her in LA, we can assume that her song Bad Blood was playing in the cab. This gives us a timeline of when he first visited her. It was when that song was out as a single because it was playing on the radio. They went out to dinner at her favorite spot. That's super cute. Then towards the end of this verse, we have a direct reference to the bonus track on this album, The Lakes. I love that song so much. It is literal poetry set to music. I will analyze it shortly. I just need to kind of figure out what my stance is on that song, but that's coming soon. I also love the progression in this verse. It's moving from his very first trip visiting her in LA to a trip they took for their 3-year anniversary. I think that's a very cute way to package it just in one verse. A lot of time is covered in that one verse. This is really funny. So I guess they were getting lunch on their trip at the lakes, and the waitress was bold and she's like, you look like an American singer, but pretend she said that with an English accent. A humbling experience for Taylor, I'm sure. Perhaps there was a little bit of a sarcastic tone to it by the waitress. I don't really know, but that's very funny. I definitely chuckled when I heard that the first time, and I still do. I love that she included that anecdote. It's really funny. Time, mystical time, cutting me open, then healing me fine. Were there clues I didn't see? And isn't it just so pretty to think, all along, there was some invisible string tying you to me. So first, time was curious, it was strange, it was something to figure out. Now it's mystical. When I hear the word mystical, I think of fairy tales, I think of magic. I noticed that in the songs that Taylor writes about Joe Alwyn, there is a mystical vibe to it. In the song Cornelia Street, which is about their relationship, in my opinion, I talk a lot about how there is like mystical diction. Again, I'll link that video for you guys. It's interesting that she's using like the word mystical again. I think she views the relationship as a very magical sort of occurrence, kind of like a fairy tale whimsical vibe, but a more grounded version of that. So now time is magical, right? It's working in her favor. It's just a very beautiful thing, a thing of fairy tales and a thing of folklore, perhaps. So she's personifying time here. Time had the ability to cut her open. That means to inflict great pain on her. Then it allowed her to heal as well. There is a saying that time heals all wounds. That's what she is saying here. Time caused her a lot of pain and suffering, but it also healed her. And I think as you grow up, you kind of realize that things happen and there's a process for everything. She's been through the pain and she's been through the healing, and she's recognizing that now. Again, repetition of the line, were there clues I didn't see. She's just very shook at how everything has worked out. I'm sure when she was in the pain, she thought it was like a tunnel with no end, with no light. But she's realizing that, you know what, healing can happen and beautiful things can happen, right? She's, again, just being very self-reflective. The rest of this verse includes repeated lyrics. A string that pulled me out of all the wrong arms, right into that dive bar. Something wrapped all of my past mistakes in barbed wire, chains around my demons, wool to brave the seasons. One single thread of gold tied me to you. This song is just so beautiful lyrically. The sun is going down. Let me turn on some lights. BRB. Let's continue onwards now. I find it really interesting that the string is now an active part of the song, meaning that it has done an action. It pulled her. The string is very much alive in this context, right? It's pulling her, and it's not like softly guiding her. It's just like, girl, you're done with all of this like incorrect relationship vibes. We're just gonna pull you out of here. That's a very interesting thing in my opinion, and I really like the way that she used the word pulled here. It's very, very interesting. So this string of fate is now pulling Taylor towards her like ultimate love fate, out of all the wrong arms and into the right one. It's like, now is time. It's time for you to meet your one true lover. And you know, the string did that. That's what Taylor is saying here. The reference to a dive bar, this is the same dive bar that was in the Delicate music video. So for me, this is definitely an autobiographical song. This verse is really telling us what fate did for her, right? And what time did for her and what the string did for her. This string not only pulled her out of the wrong situations, out of the wrong relationships, and into the right one, but it also wrapped up all of her past mistakes in barbed wire. Barbed wire is very, very strong. I actually looked it up to see like how strong this is because I had a feeling it's very strong. Consulting the internet once again, barbed wire is used to make fences, but it can also be used in warfare. So like that's very interesting. Barbed wire can be pointy and it's sometimes used on top of the fences surrounding like jails or prisons so people can't escape. It's very multifunctional, but it's also very strong, and it kind of has a violent connotation because it's used for so many of these like intense purposes. It's used in agriculture, it's used in warfare and law enforcement. Again, I'm consulting Wikipedia. It is used in a lot of things. It's very strong. So she's saying that all of her past mistakes are within this barbed wire. That means that they are just secured and in the past. She does not have access to them. They're not readily available in her mind space for her to think about and ruminate about. She has really moved on. She has really gained a new sort of understanding. She is standing on a different sort of foundation, a stronger foundation, and she can move in the world in a way that is just better and more positive, and she's just a stronger person. Time does this. As you get older, you gain more of an understanding of yourself. You gain more of an understanding as to how the world works and how you move within the world. In my opinion, the juxtaposition of string with barbed wire is very, very interesting. Barbed wire is very intense and strong, and it kind of is a violent image in my opinion, or it can be, but it's a very strong image, and string is a very delicate thing. Isn't it delicate? Isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? Ah, string like is delicate though. Did she do this on purpose? Whenever I ask myself if she did anything on purpose, the answer is always going to be yes, right? It's like a 99.99% chance that it's yes. Even though this string is delicate, it is a string of fate, and it's very powerful. And even though it's invisible, it's very powerful. From this, we can all learn a lesson. Always have hope, always have faith. Even if things are not visible to you, it doesn't mean that things are not working in your favor. Hashtag be positive. Hands around my demons. So again, her demons, her weaknesses, the negative things in her life, the anxieties, things like that. That's what the word demons is referring to in my opinion. There's chains around them now. This is showing that there is a different phase of life beginning for Taylor. And she's like becoming an adult now. She had all those experiences in the past, relationship experiences, but also just her own personal experiences. Everyone has their own personal demons, their own shortcomings, their own weaknesses, and there's chains around those now for her. So they're not able to affect her anymore. She's stronger now, and she understands herself better. Now she has wool to brave the seasons. Wool can keep you warm, and it's very important to be warm when it's cold outside, right? You need to be able to regulate your body temperature to stay alive, like physiologically. And now she has that. She can brave any season You know what I mean? She's ready for the winter. She is strong enough to be able to handle it. This is just showing a lot of personal growth and development. One single thread of gold tied me to you. I love that Taylor used the color gold here. The color gold has been used in Taylor's lyrics previously. The first lyric that comes to mind is from the album Reputation when she said, "Deep blue, but you painted me golden." That's from the song Dancing with Our Hands Tied. I really want to analyze more Reputation era songs. I just think there's a lot of very intricate details in the lyrics in that album. So if you want me to do that song, let me know in the comments below. It's a really, really great song. The color golden has been associated with her relationship with Joe Alwyn. So it's really interesting that for her, the thread is not red like the mythology states, it's gold. She is personalizing this specific thread of fate for her own story. This single thread tied her to her lover. Like, this is it for her. You know, it's tied. The word tied to me signifies a sort of permanence, and this is the one for her, you know, it's her lover. There's a whole album about him called Lover. He's the one. Next verse. Cold was the steel of my axe to grind for the boys who broke my heart. Now I send their babies presents. Gold was the color of the leaves when I showed you around Centennial Park. Hell was the journey, but it brought me heaven. This is such a great verse. Noticing throughout a lot of the verses in this song, there is progression of time and progression of growth and personal development within specific verses. So earlier on, we had progression of the relationship, you know, from him hearing bad blood in the cab when he visited her for the first time. That same verse, by the end, we were on their 3-year anniversary trip. Verse previous to this, we had her in all of these relationships that were dead ends and her making mistakes. And then we have her with chains around her demons, wool to brave the seasons. And now we have her here in this verse, just being very bitter and angry towards those that wronged her. But now she is showing her lover around the very same place where she hoped to one day meet a lover. This is all very interesting. This whole song shows progression, but within specific verses, there's progression as well. There's a progression of time. There's a progression of personal development and understanding. There's a progression of her love life and her like relationship status. This is just a song of growth and reflection. The lyric about the axe, this is actually an idiom. Having an axe to grind is like a saying, it's an idiom. And this just means that you have a very strong personal opinion about something. It's usually kind of negative, and it kind of suggests that you have like a personal agenda. I get a lot of feelings of just like bitterness and spite with that particular saying. This is just a lot of negative emotions being described here and just not positive thought processes, and that's the space in which she existed in previously. And this is all in relation to her past relationships that did not work out, but now she has healed so much from that. You know, time has passed and she looks back on it through a different lens. We see maturity here, we see forgiveness. She is sending their babies presents. Time has also gone forward for the guys. An ex-boyfriend of hers is having a baby. So here I do think it's referring to her ex-boyfriend Joe Jonas. I don't want to get too like gossipy on here. That's not really what I'm about. The reason I'm stating this is because there are songs written about Joe Jonas, specifically the song Last Kiss. And we know from Taylor's appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show that she said that Joe broke up with her in like a 27-second phone call. And she was so bitter about it that in the song Last Kiss, which was about that relationship, it's one of the songs about that relationship, the intro was 27 seconds. So it's like the phone call happened, he broke up with her, and then she had like a stream of consciousness about everything. I'm gonna analyze that song eventually because there's a lot. The reason I'm stating that I think it's about Joe Jonas is because there's like a legit like track record. There's like a paper trail of their relationship and there are songs written about that relationship, and she's discussed it as well on the Ellen show like recently. This shows growth because there was a lot of bitterness about that. And even in one of her like vlogs she used to do like back in the day, like when MySpace was still a thing, I remember there was like a Ken doll of Joe Jonas and it had a phone, and I remember her saying like, oh look, he has a phone so he can call to break up with the other Barbie dolls. Like, obviously she was very bitter about it, understandably so. I think she was like what, 18 or 19, so she was really young. But yeah, if you know a little bit of the history there and you know the context, this is a very big deal that she's mentioning this. Yeah. And then there was a whole thing with the Jonas Brothers also writing a song, and saying that they don't care about the teardrops on her guitar, and that's obviously a very blatant reference to Taylor's music. So there was a whole thing. That's why I'm getting into it here. I don't usually like to do like a whole he said, she said thing, but I think the context here has value just so we can like see the personal growth that has happened. But yeah, let me know if you want me to analyze Last Kiss. I love the album Speak Now. It's one of my favorites. Taylor did not have any co-writers for that album, and I actually prefer songs where she's the sole songwriter, so I love that album a lot. It has a special place in my heart. Let's move on. That was a tangent. So this is showing forgiveness and maturity. I stand. The string is gold and now the leaves are gold. The color of gold is something positive for Taylor. It is showing purity of their love, in my opinion. So the fact that the leaves are that color is a good sign, right? It's a positive sort of foreshadow. I love the progression of her showing him around Centennial Park. That was the exact setting where she sat when she, was single and she hoped to meet someone there. Now she's taking her lover to that same exact spot, showing him around. That's a very nice and beautiful progression. I love that. Hell was a journey, but it brought me heaven. Again, everything's a journey. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Heaven and hell are obviously literal opposites. She's saying that the journey here was not fun. It was pretty not great for her, but she's saying as bad as it was, it led me to you. She also talks about like heaven and hell on her Lover album. I really need to do an analysis of the song False God because it's talking about how their love is a religion that's being worshipped. But also in that song False God, there's a lyric that says something like, heaven is when I touch you and hell is when I fight with you. I need to analyze that song and perhaps like do a video on like religious addiction with her relationship with Joe, because there are other instances of like religious and mystical addiction that are all associated with her relationship with Joe Alwyn. Also, another thing that I tell everyone that will listen to me, listen, in the song Last Kiss off of her album Speak Now, that song is about Joe Jonas, allegedly. But she says that his name is forever the name on her lips. Her current lover, who is like the one, his name is Joe. His name is Joe. So that is literally the name on her lips forever. Like how? Isn't that wild? Like this really was fate and she really was right. Like this is forever the name on my lips. It's just a different Joe. She had the wrong Joe in 2008 or whatever. Now she has the right Joe. Forever the name on my lips. Okay, I digress. If you are equally shook as I am, please like this video. I'm very shook. All this gets me worked up. Last verse. Time, wondrous time, gave me the blues and then purple pink skies. And it's cool, baby, with me. And isn't it just so pretty to think? All along, there was some invisible string tying you to me. Time was curious the first time it was mentioned, then it was mystical, and now it's wondrous. Kind of reminds me of the lyric Wonderstruck from her song Enchanted from the album Speak Now. Now that I think of it, a lot of the diction here kind of reminds me of that album. That album was very like fairy tale-like and magical. It was a very like beautiful thing, and the word wondrous here reminds me of the lyric that says, I'm wonderstruck, blushing all the way home from the song Enchanted. I don't know, for me, I'm getting a lot of Speak Now vibes, but a more mature version of that. Time is dynamic, right? Time gave her the blues, it gave her sadness, it gave her hell, but it also gave her happiness, it gave her heaven, it gave her purple pink skies. And guess what, y'all? Her album Lover, on the album cover, the sky is purple and pink. So at least for me, there are quite a few callbacks to previous albums, and I appreciate that. It shows growth, and it's just kind of nostalgic. Kind of feel like I've been on this journey with her. So I stan. The rest of the lyrics in this verse are repeated. I've already discussed them. So that's actually the end of the song. This song is very beautiful. If you listen to it, there's a lot of guitar plucking, and it's kind of just like the sound of guitar strings, and this song is about an invisible string, so I thought that was a very nice touch. And also there's not a lot of backing instrumentally, so you just kind of have to listen to her voice, which I always love. I think she has a very warm and soothing voice. It just makes you listen in a little bit more, just like the sentence structure makes you listen in a little bit more. This is just a very beautiful song. I want to like wear a very cottagecore like dress and go out into like a meadow when it's very sunny and just like listen to the song on repeat while I like eat strawberries. That's like the vibe I get from this song. It's very specific. This is a very beautiful song and it's a very hopeful thing. You know, after all she went through, she has something very beautiful and positive, and she found a love that appears to be very pure and very true. That's all I have for this song. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you found it enjoyable. Please let me know what you thought of in the comments below. Let's discuss this. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day or night or afternoon or literally whenever you're watching this. Okay, bye. Bye. Is this like aesthetic? Like, is this like Tumblr vibes or something?